Hey y'all, how's it going? Welcome back to Seed to Plant channel. My name is Brooke and today we are talking about fall garden plans. So I live in Texas, Zone 8B. I'm in Central Texas and it is currently right around the middle of July. We're like a third of the way through July. So it is time for us to start planning all our fall gardens. I recently heard somebody say that Central Texas has a long season between frosts, but a short growing season. And that was really interesting to me because the reason she said that is because the time that we can put stuff in the ground from the time it gets too hot is actually pretty short. It's only like 90 days. And then the time when it gets cool enough to plant our fall stuff and then the first freeze is also only about 90 days. So you really have to plan things accordingly because of the heat. Now we still have plenty of things we can grow in the heat. I have a whole video of everything I'm growing in the hot summer garden right now. We've got okra, we've got melons, sweet potatoes, all the good stuff. But today we're talking about fall plants. So fall gardening in Central Texas is one of my favorite times to garden. One of the reasons why is because there's a lot less pest pressure and it's not 500 degrees. So I love to use this 11 by 17 grid paper. I think this is actually engineering paper. One of my friends is an engineer and she was laughing when I showed her my spring garden plan on the engineering paper. But I like it a lot because it allows me to use each little square as 6 inches in my garden. So I have all of my beds drawn out in this way and then I have listed out what's gonna go in each bed. Now, I just kind of want to go through all the varieties of what I'm growing and I'll tell you where I'm growing it and why I'm growing it there and kind of what's going on in each bed. So the way that I'm gardening in this backyard garden is very much on a rotational basis. So for example, right now, we can go ahead and talk about what I call the old bed, which was the bed that was here when we moved in. So that's going to be this bed right here. So this bed is 4 foot by 16 foot. It's a really big bed. And right now it has sweet potatoes in it and it's going to have sweet potatoes in it probably until at least October. So the nice thing about that bed is the old bed has already some infrastructure to where I could put hoops over it for a frost. So because I have sweet potatoes in that bed right now that aren't going to be harvested until a little bit later in the fall, what I will be doing there is I will actually be succession sowing carrots, parsnips, turnips, and radishes. So I'm really focusing on root crops in that bed. And the reason why is because that bed is really high. It's probably at least 16 inches off the ground. And it has a lot of really beautiful loose soil, whereas my other beds are still getting established. So the other beds need something that's gonna have a lot more aggressive roots, and you really need some nice loose soil for root crops. So we will be succession sowing those, and I've never really been good at succession sowing, so I'm really excited to try that out. So let's go through the different varieties of what I'm putting in the old bed of carrots, parsnips, turnips, and radish. So starting with radishes. Now, radish haters, hear me out, okay? Radishes are very good roasted and they are very, very good when it's chilly outside. They get really nice and sweet, and then when you roast them kind of like with a pot roast or a roasted chicken or just a bunch of roasted vegetables, they just develop this different kind of a flavor. So cherry bells are very standard in terms of radishes. I grow them all the time. This is a new variety to me called the champion radish. And then these are rainbow mixed radishes. And these seeds are some that I brought home from Amsterdam last summer. So lots of radishes. I really just like them as a good root crop. They also are a really good trap crop for flea beetles. So I do end up planting a few trap crops every year just because I try and spray as least as possible. With that being said, I do end up having to spray BT during the fall because we get really bad cabbage worms. Moving on to parsnips. Parsnips, I will not lie, are like not the most exciting vegetable in the world, but they're very good and they're very sweet when roasted, just like radishes. There's not that many types of parsnips that you can grow. This is an all-American parsnip, really, really standard variety from Botanical Interest. And then these are called Harris model parsnips. Again, A parsnip's a parsnip. You can't get too fancy with it. Okay, so carrots. I personally love carrots, and I'm developing more and more of a love for carrots. I used to not like roasted carrots. I don't like vegetables that get roasted and they're sweet, and then you add more sweet. So like brown sugar glazed carrots, count me out. I'm good. But like a spicy roasted carrot, now we're talking. So I am going to be trying to grow a lot of carrots because I also love to put them in soups. And along with all of these things, one of my big goals for my fall garden is actually to dehydrate greens and make greens powders. I eat smoothies and drink smoothies almost every single day, and I really loved making greens powder this spring from some collard greens that my mom had. It was just really, really awesome. So in terms of carrot varieties, I have some just Danvers carrots that I got sent by a friend. These are Imperator 58 carrots. These are most likely a hybrid carrot. And then we have Scarlet Nance carrots. These are also a pretty standard variety. I'm gonna try and grow some rainbow carrots. These are super duper fun. Cosmic purple carrots, also really, really fun. And then I've had these seeds now for a couple of years. These are Uzbek golden carrots, and they're just kind of a fun one. So these I'll definitely be succession sowing. Everything in that bed will be succession sowed, but certainly the carrots will be succession sowed. And again, we have the ability to put that frost fabric over all of the veg. So that will also really, really help, you know, keeping everything through the winter. So turnips are the next one that I'll be growing. Again, super standard. These are Market Express turnips. Nothing crazy going on. There's purple top white globe turnips. Again, super standard. A turnip is a turnip. Like, can't get too crazy with it. Turnip greens are also really, really tasty, sauteed with like some collards and some kale. But there you go again. They would also make a perfect candidate to make some homemade greens powder for smoothies. So moving along the garden, the next bed is the right front bed. So that's the one in between the old bed and to the back. That one's gonna have kale, collards, chard, and brassicas, and rutabaga, and kohlrabi. So let me talk you through my logic in planting the garden, okay? Brassicas are pretty much gonna be in the middle because they are the tallest, okay? And then the way my backyard gets the sun, everything gets the sun pretty evenly, but if you were to put it on one of the outside rows, it would definitely not get the same amount of sun. So I'll be putting like broccoli and brassicas in the middle, and then on the outsides, I'm putting smaller stuff. So kale, collards, chard, rutabaga, kohlrabi, stuff that stays pretty low to the ground. And then once those brassicas, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, and stuff like that, once they are harvested, what will go in the middle then will be lettuces. And that'll be when it's pretty chilly out. Lettuce here grows really, really well when it's pretty cold, obviously up until it frosts, and then it dies, but it's really, really sweet then. So we'll go through all of the kale, collards, and chard right now, and then we'll go through brassicas and rutabaga and kohlrabi. So let's go through the different brassicas that I will be growing this year. And when I say brassicas, I have put out of that group cauliflower because I have cauliflower going in a separate spot. But brassicas can mean broccoli, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower. Those are all brassicas. But for right now, we're just gonna go through broccoli and Brussels sprouts because those are the tall guys that I will be putting in the middle. So broccoli is hands down one of our favorite things that we eat. We buy it all year round, even though it's not in season all year round because we just love eating broccoli. The Waltham 29 broccoli is a really standard variety, and it's always done really, really well for me. There's nothing really that special about it. It is standard old broccoli. And then I got some seeds called Green Magic broccoli. That's a short variety, only 55 days. And it says good spring or fall. So I actually might just try and direct sow this and see what happens. This one I also got as just kind of a fun little gift. It's called Godzilla broccoli, and it says it has really large crowns. This is a 70-day variety, so I'll be starting this one in advance. And then this is a DeCiso broccoli. Again, I'll be starting this one in advance as well. So with broccoli, again, nothing crazy that you can really do in terms of variety. I actually think getting more of the standard varieties is good because by the time fall comes around, I've had all these special and unique varieties of melons and peppers and tomatoes and all this stuff, and I just kind of want something a little more standard, if you will. Now, Brussels sprouts are going to be a little bit of a risk for me this year. I've never successfully grown them, but I have seen other people successfully grow them. So I think I just need to do a little bit of research on technique because we also really love Brussels sprouts, and I love the idea of being able to grow my own Brussels sprouts. So the only variety that I have 3 different packets of it, is the Long Island improved Brussels sprouts. So these are all ones I will be starting ahead of time and then transplanting. All right, let's talk about rutabaga real quick. So rutabaga, I feel like a lot of people don't even really know what it is, or if they do know what it is, they're like not super stoked on it. So rutabaga, I grew 1 rutabaga last year. My fall garden was not great. I grew 1. And what I did with it was I actually boiled it until it was soft, and I mashed it up with some mashed potatoes and like a tiny bit of sour cream and some herbs. Y'all, it was so good. Like, it was just like a little bit sweet, and I really enjoyed it as just kind of like a switch up to some mashed potatoes. So I will be growing American purple top rutabaga again this year. And this is something I will also succession sow because like you can only eat so many rutabaga at one time. I feel like that's the interesting thing with root crops versus like growing tomatoes is when you're growing tomatoes, you're trying to grow like all of them at the same time and then you have to figure out what to do with them. But for a lot of root crops, that's not really the case. So moral of the story, I'm very excited about rutabaga. I encourage you to grow it if you've never grown it. Now next is kohlrabi. I don't know that much about kohlrabi. I just know that it looks really cool when it grows and it kind of tastes like something between cabbage and celery. And that's really all I know about kohlrabi. But if it tastes a lot like celery and cabbage, I think it would be really fun to use it in like some slaws. Like sometimes I'll get like a totally like wild idea and instead of putting like lettuce on a taco, I'll make like a creamy chipotle coleslaw. And I feel like this would be really fun to kind of put in that. So I'm just gonna grow a couple and see how it goes. And then maybe if it goes well, we'll lean in more next year. So that takes care of the bed on the right. Now the back bed on the right is going to have brassicas in the middle. We already talked about that, broccoli and Brussels sprouts. So then on the inside of that bed, it's going to have spinach and bok choy. Now bok choy grows really well here. Don't know why. And then spinach also grows really well here if you plant it at the right time. So in terms of spinach, I'll just be growing very, very standard Bloomsdale spinach. I'll direct sow this. You can start it ahead of time, but I'll just direct sow it and that'll be fun. And then this is a rosette bok choy. Now this one I will start in advance, but I might try and like succession start these. So that I have some at different points because I love making stir fries. We probably make stir fry once or twice a week. That's probably what the majority of what I would use this for, but there you go again. I don't need 10 bok choy all at the same time. I need like 1 bok choy a week for 10 weeks. So that's why I'll probably be succession sowing my bok choy, whereas the spinach, I don't really need a succession sow because you can pick spinach the same way you pick lettuce where you just pick like 1 leaf at a time and then you can just let it grow back, you go back. It's a cut and come again kind of a thing, but those will be on the inside of the back bed on the right. Okay, so in the back, we're gonna do cauliflower and beets. So remember, cauliflower are also a brassica, and I'm not gonna grow a ton of cauliflower, but I wanna try and grow like a few different ones just for fun. So we're gonna do this snowball cauliflower. This is a super duper standard variety of cauliflower. And then I'm gonna be doing a flame star cauliflower, which is one of the yellow varieties, super fun. And then this is a variety that's new to me, which is called a twisted cauliflower. So we'll do some cauliflower. Back when I was vegan, I had this amazing recipe, and I have to find it again. I had this amazing recipe for a whole roasted cauliflower. You literally covered it with some stuff and roasted it like like you would a chicken. And it was so good. It was so satisfying. Like, it was one of the best things I ever made when I was vegan. That takes care of everything on the right side of the yard. Now we're gonna go to the back bed. Now that's where all my big heirloom tomatoes are right now. Well, they're only gonna be there for a couple more days. It's time for them to go. But let's talk about the back bed. So I am actually getting ready to clear out that bed, amend it, remulch it, really give the soil a lot of love, and then I will actually be replanting tomatoes. So because I live in central Texas and we stay pretty warm, what a lot of people do is they will actually replant tomatoes in July and August so that they can get a tomato harvest in the fall when it cools down. So basically what you do is you plant the tomatoes in the dead of the summer, knowing that they're gonna grow if you water them properly, but they are absolutely not going to put off flowers until it gets below like 90 degrees. So I'm actually going to my Garden Friends plant sale this weekend to get some fall tomatoes. Now, instead of doing 2 rows on either side of the trellis, I'm just doing 1 row right under the trellis because we have so many freaking tomatoes. My freezer is still full of tomatoes. I just want some fresh eating tomatoes in the fall. Also, another big reason is my fiance's mom and dad, they come visit us every fall, and she wants to try one of my tomatoes so bad to the point where I almost tried to fly it to Chicago when we went a few weeks ago. So I really want them to be able to experience the tomatoes that we grow in our backyard because, you know, they've been hearing about them for a very long time. So I'm really excited for fall tomatoes. So since we're only doing fall tomatoes down the middle and I'm giving them lots of room, normally I really push the spacing of my tomatoes. I'm actually gonna be giving these tomatoes like a full 24 inches apart, which is crazy. I don't think I've literally ever done that. Before, I've always like tried to push the boundaries, but I don't really have to this time. So what I'm going to be doing is we're going to have the tomatoes down the middle, and then I'm going to do another like kind of line of marigolds on both sides. Now, I've talked about this before, but marigolds are extremely beneficial for the soil. There's tons of studies, I will leave them below, about why you should plant marigolds. They help repel root knot nematode. They put a lot of like really good nutrients into the soil. They do a lot of pest prevention. Like, marigolds are amazing. I love them, and there's a lot of scientific research to back up why you should put them all over your garden. I'm gonna step off my pedestal. So I'm gonna do marigolds, which I will start those before. One thing that I really was kind of sad and disappointed about in my spring garden is that I did not start enough flowers. Well, I started them, but we were moving and there was so much going on that I was not doing a very good job at like making sure that they were alive, and I ended up tossing all of my flower starts, which was such a bummer. So that's something I really want to focus on for this summer is starting all my own marigolds, making sure I pop them up and getting them out into my garden because there's so many fun and interesting types of marigolds. And I still planted them. I just went and bought them from Home Depot this year, but again, I'm gonna get off my pedestal about that. So we'll do 2 rows of marigolds on either side, and then right on the outsides, what I wanna do is do bush beans. So bush beans you can plant really close together, and they will kind of hold each other up, and they are prolific, and we love green beans. So like, I will easily freeze those and we will eat those for a very long time because we just love green beans. So let me show you the different types of green beans that I'll be growing this year. Again, a lot of these varieties are very standard. There's only so much creativity you can get with a freaking green bean. But contender bush beans have always done really, really well for me. Burpee stringless beans, another one that has always done really well. This is a fun one. These are dragon's tongue bush beans. Now, I will say my only comment about these is if you do let them get too big, they get a little bit weirdly textured, like almost squeaky. You know what I mean? Like they almost kind of get that squeaky texture, and all this beautiful coloration goes away when you cook them, but they're still really fun and beautiful to look at. Blue Lake bush beans are another just super standard variety. And then these are, finally, I will get rid of these. These are the Royal Burgundy bush beans. I ordered like the biggest bag of green beans ever years ago, and these are purple. So these are bright purple, but same thing. The color goes away once you cook them, but they're really, really beautiful plants to have in your garden. So we will make sure that those are nice and full. And the other big reason I wanted to plant bush beans in that bed is because tomatoes really need a lot of nitrogen. And when you grow green beans or peas, and then you let the vines die, so like you get your harvest and then you let it all die, it's actually really good to give nitrogen back to that soil. So I'm trying to plan things that will be regenerative to the soil over time, and think about my garden in that way. On the left side of the yard, we have 3 beds. 2 that are attached by an arched trellis, and then 1 in the back. So we're gonna start with the one all the way in the front that has one side of the trellis and work backwards from there. So what I'll have on the outside of that bed are cauliflower and beets. I'll have brassicas in the middle, and then right on the inside where the trellis is, I will have things that climb. So the things that I will be having that climbs are pole beans, which are literally green beans that climb and vine, and then sugar snap peas. So both of those grow really, really well in the cooler months here, and they're really, really good for freezing. So the pole beans that I'll be growing are these black creaseback pole beans, and these are just a standard green bean, and then these Dean's purple beans. So these are both climbing beans that will climb up the trellis. There'll be lots of green beans. I'm so excited. And then sugar snap peas, nothing too exciting. These are just regular old sugar snap peas, but these will be awesome just to have in the garden. You can also grow these through the winter. They tend to do really well with a frost. So I'm really, really excited. I haven't grown snap peas in a couple of years, so super excited for those. And so that'll be on both sides of the trellis. I'll have probably like a few green beans and then a few snap peas, and we'll kind of alternate them so it all mixes up and looks lovely. And then for the middle bed that has the other side of the trellis, we'll be doing brassicas in the middle and then beets on the end. So I want to go through all of the varieties of beets that I'm growing because I really want to succession sow those, and I want to eat more beets. Beets are tough because they taste like dirt, and that is because of a certain chemical compound in them the name's escaping me at this point. But you know when you go outside after it rains and it smells like wet dirt? That's the same chemical compound that beets have in them, which is why they smell and taste like dirt. Now, here's the thing. If you were to plug your nose and eat a beet, it doesn't taste like dirt. But because our sense of smell and our sense of taste are so intertwined, that's why people think beets taste like dirt. So I've had a couple of beet dishes in restaurants that I have like loved. And so I'm really interested to figure out how to cook beets at home the way that I like them, and they're going to be tasty. As I do with things that I want to try and love, I just get a bunch of them, like a total crazy person. Now, I've heard that the gateway into beets are golden beets. So I have Touchstone Gold beets, which are a little bit of a longer variety, and then Golden Boy beets, which are a 65 to 70 day variety. And then in terms of red beets, I have these kind of striped beets, and I'm not even gonna try and say that name, but you can see it on the screen. And then I just have a beet blend. And there you go again. Beets are one of those where you can not only eat the actual beet, but you can really eat the greens too. And they are just so good for you, so tasty. And we can also dehydrate the greens into this magical greens powder that I'm never gonna stop talking about. The back bed is where things are gonna get interesting. So I really wanna try and grow some things I've never grown before. Those 2 things are fennel and celery. I didn't think you could grow celery here. However, I saw somebody on the interwebs who was in zone 9 growing celery successfully, and I love celery. And homegrown celery does not taste like nothing. Like grocery store celery sometimes tastes terrible. The celery that you grow tastes very different. So the variety of celery I have is called Utah celery, and I do think I'm gonna attempt to start this inside. But the seeds are so teeny tiny, so I have to figure out how to manage that. I mean, a lot of the seeds, by the way, for fall stuff are teeny tiny. I don't know why. And then this is the fennel I'll be growing. I think it's called Florence fennel. So again, I will definitely start this ahead of time, but I think it'll just add some really nice dimension to a lot of those like fall and winter dishes that we all know and love. And then the last thing that I haven't talked about yet are kales, collards, and shards. And those are all some of my favorite things to grow. I love to saute them. I love to dehydrate them. I love to put them in smoothies. Those really dark leafy greens are so good for you. And if you know how to cook them properly, they taste amazing. So I have converted a lot of my family members over to sauteed collard greens. I've actually converted a lot of my family members to some of these dark leafy greens because once you cook them, you can really just do so much with them. So let's talk about the varieties. So we'll start with collards. I tend to stick to these two, the Alabama Blue and the Green Glaze. They are both varieties that are really, really good for the southern regions, and they're just super tasty. For kales, I'm trying to keep it a little more simple this year. I'm sure I'll get like a standard curly leaf kale, but I am gonna stick with the lacinato or the dinosaur kale, some purple moon kale, also very beautiful, and then a red Russian kale. So I love just a standard green kale. I'll probably get some seedlings, let's be honest, but really I'm trying to kind of just focus on a couple varieties. So in terms of chard, I'll only be growing a few. This is just your standard like super colorful chard. You can get any of the colors based on the seed. There's Ford Hook chard. Ford Hook chard tends to do better once it gets hot. Like a lot of people will keep their Ford Hook chard in the garden until like, I don't know, probably like at least April or May. And then your typical ruby red, or I think it's called rhubarb chard. So I'll be growing those as well. Now, one thing I'm just now realizing I forgot to plant in my garden was cabbage. And cabbage is something I want to grow, but I don't think I'll be growing a ton of it. So the cabbage seeds that I do have are just your typical Brunswick cabbage, a Cheers cabbage, which I've never grown before, a Savoy cabbage, which is kind of like a Chinese cabbage, and then a red cabbage. So I probably will try and grow a few of those, but again, we're not like sauerkraut or kimchi like consumers, so there's not really that much need to grow a bunch of cabbage. That is my fall garden plan. I hope this was inspiring. I hope that you plant a fall garden. I hope you enjoy the fall garden. I feel like mentally it's always really hard for me to get my head in the game to start the seeds for the fall garden because I'm so tired. By the time I have to start these seeds, I'm so tired of gardening from the spring and summer that I just don't want to do it. However, every year that I've gardened, I forced myself to do it, and I've always just been so thankful because the fall garden is just so much less maintenance. It's so much less stress. We start getting rain again. So do your future self a favor and really think about planting a fall garden. I think you'll really be happy that you did in a few months. So thanks so much for watching. Happy gardening, and we'll see you next time.